some meaningful analysis about it, that these ideas are the one which are going to provide some business value, or in a specific area, why do we need to implement this idea? So for example, I think I will just also answer the question that you asked earlier, because you didn't ask me what question I should be asking. Anyway,
I hadn't gotten to it yet, but if you'd like to do that, go ahead.
So for example,
I was supposed to take control of this panel. You see what's happened? Go ahead.
So the point is that sometimes I talk about, we talk about innovation, but I think there is one word prior to that, which is very key, is applied innovation.
Applied innovation.
So something that we just don't want it to be like, okay, we just want to chase the shiny object, and now I'm going to find where's the problem and I can apply to it. It is something that we have been trying. There is a very simple problem that I will give you as an example, is that our airport agents, we solved this problem 10 years ago. It was an old technology. And after that, from last 3-4 years, they were always looking for how to serve their customers on the spot. It's a very simple solution. It's like a mobile device, have a mobile app, which can pull up your PNR with a simple scanning and then provide you whatever answer.
I'm guessing PNR is secret code for something in Delta.
It's called record locator, or your confirmation number.
I knew that.
So it's something so simple, and they were trying from last 3 years because the funding process and all. And then once the Innovation Center came up, it was a 2-month from start to implementing a minimum viable product, and quickly implementing in one small station, getting that feedback loop. And right now, if you go to Atlanta, there are 100+ people.
I think that's a key insight. For those of you who are thinking of setting up innovation centers, there are a lot of draws to innovation center, besides being able to meet people and to make deals between companies, which I want to talk a little bit more about. The notion that there are ideas that just aren't making any progress, but if you somehow had them show up at the innovation center, they make progress. There's something unlocking about that for people. Whether those ideas go anywhere or not. I've seen in many innovation centers in which ideas end up not going anywhere, but just that notion that it might go somewhere seems to unlock some of the creativity from the staff, and it also seems to get customers to feel like your company is more innovative, which has an intrinsic value in and of itself. Would you say that that's true?
And this particular idea, we are having other kind of a challenge, because the moment while it was still in a POC state, there was an incident happen, and because of that, our senior leadership just simply said, I want it, and I want it right now. So we were talking about, okay, let's learn from it, and then let's go ahead and do it methodically. But we had a different kind of a challenge, which is better than not having to implement the idea. So that was one example. I can have several other examples.
No, it's good. Actually, what I wanted to ask Ken, what question do you think I should ask Phil? I just wanted to see how far this could go. It's not going to go that far. Okay, so we'll have a question for Rachel. So Rachel, when Cox comes in and does this thing and gets a little bit of equity, which I'm sure can't really matter for somebody like Cox in the long run anyway, but it's nice that they do it because it keeps them aligned. There is something that Cox can do for the startups, which is it can make itself open to the startups somehow. So the startups might come in feeling as though Cox might be a customer. There's so many things to Cox. Do you find that actually happens? Is that something which people do manage to take advantage of, either within Cox or within the startup community?
This is a great question, because we also
I like that. I like her a lot.
Because I agree.
Go ahead.
We get this a lot from the companies that interview to come through our program. They say, why should I choose Techstars, and why specifically should I choose Techstars Atlanta over all of these 29 other Techstars accelerators I could go to? And it's really because Cox has proven themselves in the first year of our existence of being able to connect with all of the startups that we bring in. If they don't align with their 3 main business units of automotive, communications, and media, because we don't have to, we actually can go out and find, we just search for greatness is what we like to call it. But they find ways to plug in with all of the companies, whether it's offering it as a corporate perk, if it's more of a B2C company, or connecting them into the larger network that Cox has in terms of just resources and content, and being able to push it out to all of their media properties as well to get some face time for these startups.
So Phil, I have a question for you. Thank you for that, Rich. I have a question for you. What's not working for you at your corporation, at your innovation center? Is there something that if you could wave a magic wand and say, boy, if I had to do this over again, or if I could only get the people around me to do the right thing, what would make the innovation center itself be more innovative?
Well, we only have about 40 minutes left. So that we have a lot of things that...
We have less than 40 minutes.
we have a lot of things that...
I'll cut you off before that. Yeah. What's a top 20? No, what's a top 2?
For my role, I'm a technologist inside the lab, and I can give you some things that haven't quite panned out yet for us. And when I came in as a technologist, I came to the AR/VR forum that we had a couple of months ago here, and I jumped into VR, I jumped into AR, I started learning Blender and Unity, and I wanted to code it, and I brought it, I was like, okay,
For those of you
lab.
who don't know, those are virtual reality simulation
Right,
systems.
so I bought the Vive, I went full force into VR and AR. And I brought it to the lab and I let everybody see it, and I said, isn't this cool? And they said, yeah, but what's the problem you're trying to solve with it? And I was like, so that people can see VR.
So are you saying are you saying that you were the problem with your innovation center? Is
Well,
that
I came in, no, what I'm saying is I came in with technology first without understanding what problem I was trying to solve first. And it helped me understand.
Well, we've
and I
never
think we
heard that
do
problem
a lot.
before.
And I think we do that a lot, whether it's through beacons or RFID, and I'm coming in with all these technologies before we actually know what we're trying to do with it. And I think if you're not, we have a defined process that we follow, and we'll find that through any of those phases that I showed on design thinking, at any point it can fail. And we'll go back to the company and say, okay, this is why it failed, here's our research, we have ethnographers, I can never say that. We have ethnographers that do research with customers and their customers to find out why doesn't it work, what do you like about it, what don't you like about it. And then we may have to change our strategy completely. We have a saying in the lab that fail fast. If you're going to do things, find it fast and fail.
We have a saying where I work, which is "Don't fail." I just want to say, I was a big, I hate fail fast. So here's why. Because the opposite of success isn't failure. It's not success. So I'm okay with not success. I think failure is like really bad. When you fail, it's like really bad. So not success, good plan. Okay? Failure, I just want to say, that's just me, but I get to moderate, so I get to cut in. Thank you for that.
Now, where we would like to actually fail is during the initial drawing,
Don't
right?
fail.
So if you
Just say,
sketch
that
something
wasn't
on a piece of
successful,
paper
let's
and you
go
say,
on.
do you like
know,
this?
Failure is like you're in a hole, you're done,
But
you're
yours succeeds,
bankrupt,
I
you're
say.
done, it's awful. So anyway, seriously, you can just avoid failure, just to keep it as non-success, you'll be fine. And then just move to success, that's what you're looking for. It's an interesting thing. I'm jumping in, I'm talking over you, it's a good plan. Mahesh, let me ask you a question about your, did it get quiet for a second? Mahesh, I told him we would have some fireworks. We were supposed to say ahead of time, this was a really great panel, and there were fireworks, so I had to create fireworks. So, Mahesh, does Delta have an interest in working with other innovation centers?
Yes.
How does that work out? How do you actually manage that?
So we are already in the relationship with a lot of other folks who are not a direct competitor, but kind of complementing us. So, for example, if there's a company in automotive where there are people who are starting from their home, coming to the airport, there is some opportunities there to maybe allow them to check in while they're still driving and they forgot to check in. Or there are other areas, say for example, there is a voice activated system or voice as an interaction channel, and there are several providers out there, and we would like to introduce that into our ecosystem. We would like to open that as a channel. So there are several opportunities. Again,
And do you have experience doing that? You have natural ways to construct those kinds of relationships with fellow innovation centers? I mean,
Yeah.
there are at least 26 that I know of that are going in this general area, so there's tons of opportunity to do this.
yeah, and that happens naturally because the people like myself coming here or
I just want to say
several
that I
other
think
areas.
Dover and First Data, they're great people to partner with for Delta. So you just consider this networking event. So-
Absolutely.
Okay, and I'm sure others in the room.
Yeah.
Okay.
And not only that, but while we are solving a problem, at that point in time, it can ignite, okay, who else can help me out? There might be somebody else who might have done something similar, but they are not direct competitor. For example, we are solving this problem of a very simple use case, pre-select meal.
Please select me.
Yeah, pre-select meal when you are on the flight. So for our premium passengers, we provide 4 different kind of meals, a complimentary one. And this was contributing to one of
I
our
haven't
top.
had a meal on a flight for a really long time.
So this was contributing to our top 5 issues on the NPS score. And we were always trying to
Net
implement
Promoter
this.
Score, it's a
Net-
measure of how viral you are.
Yeah, so
In a good way, viral in a good way.
So when we were trying to implement this in our regular channel like Fly Delta app or Delta.com, we were always falling short because there were other priorities. And so it so necessity is a mother of invention. We started thinking, what else can we do? We started thinking about bots. And so we partnered with some of the folks who are in the bot space, who has done in the Tech Square or other innovation center. We started working, okay, how about we just reach out to these people via text message or via an email, which they are already familiar with. And the results were outstanding.
Yeah, I understand Russia had a similar thought, just mentioned.
So within
Just be careful with those bots.
within 2 months of effort, we just ran a 30 days program. It definitely was recognized by the people on the media. And what we were able to do is collect the statistics and provide that information to the group. Eventually, they are the one who are going to see. And the net promoter score, which was not considered to be jumping that high if we would have gone to the traditional channel, such as a Fly Delta app or Delta.com. This one was like you were reaching out to them and forcing them to respond to you. And it was a tremendous response that nobody ever thought
No,
about.
it's very cool. So I like success. That's cool.
Yes.
Okay, so what do you think? We got some questions from the audience? You want to come up here and tell me the question so then I can repeat it?
I can just yell out from here.
All right, but I'll still repeat it, so go ahead. And by the way, I just want to say, this is a chance for you to talk, but I'd rather it be a question than like a statement or a position. So
Okay,
I'll...
so here's a question. Google famously does this 20% time of innovation time or doing your own.
I'll repeat for people who can't hear.
And
Yeah.
then I just want to compare something with that where everyone is sort of involved in innovation versus a very specific.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So what's your name?
Karun.
From where?
Wireless Technology Forum.
From which?
From the Wireless Technology.
From the Wireless Technology Forum. So you're a plant. I love it. So here's an observation, which is there have been companies that have attempted to, in some ways, democratize innovation. One of the most famous, of course, is Google. In the early days, Google stood up and said, everybody in the company has 1 day a week that they're allowed to do some other project other than their main project. It turned out that didn't work out so well in the end, but it's a very simple idea to say, let's give everybody 20% time to work on something innovative and see how it plays out. There are lots of reasons perhaps why that worked and didn't work, but I think what you're asking these people is that something that maybe you've tried inside of Delta or that you might try inside of Dover? Or I think you're 100%, like at Techstars it's 100% innovation time and 0%. Maybe you want to have 1 day a week where people go to work, I don't know. And Phil, I wonder how something like that is played out at First Data. That's a great question, thank you very much. So let's just go down.
Yeah, so at Delta, I don't think that because we are an airline company, we cannot just let people have 20% time off and not take care of our customers. But definitely in the area
By the way,
where...
just imagine what that means for Google and how they must feel about their customers, if you're right.
But what's happening is that definitely there is an encouragement for people to think outside the box. So we are slowly starting. We have internal hackathons where we are inviting employees to be participating into certain problems that they feel very passionate about it. So the culture is changing.
Techstars does that, by the way. They make very nice three-day startup weekends. You might want to talk to them.
So slowly we are just going to bring into the mainstream of the employees and the culture that how we can find a collaborative space and the time where we work through while we are a service industry with a lot of regulations and day-to-day focus on operations, that how we bring all those people to be able to adopt something like Google can do it because of their nature of work.
Right, it's interesting. And Ken, I know as we were talking earlier, you said as you're coming into this setting, the CEO is looking around and seeing that there are many different people and many different, this is like a conglomerate that Dover is, that making it possible for people to be more innovative is something you've already talked to the CEO about. So do you have some thoughts about this?
Yeah, I hate that notion. This notion of saying, oh, I'm going to set aside a couple of hours a day to think differently than I normally think.
And he says it to the pilots and says, just not when you're landing. That's what they say.
I've tried that before in other things, or I've seen it tried before, and I just don't. To me, I think it's asking your teams, your employee base, your associate base, to do something that's very abnormal, which is do your job
I'm just imagining.
and then have fun.
That's what, the Innovation Center is where people do abnormal stuff. That's what I think he's saying.
So we're really more, for us, it's more about how do we move the culture in such a way as people are not afraid to bring forward the things that they would naturally already think.
Yeah, I think if I could just, because I want to move it along and get more questions, I think that idea of people are feeling afraid, they're feeling locked in. The thing that made that thing work for Google is, you're not, don't be afraid on this day. Pick your 20% time. That's unlocking. I'm not sure that's a good plan, but I think that's part of why that plan might actually work. Something like that might work. Phil, what do you think? I'm just going to skip. I don't think it's the same thing for Techstars. We'll get a question that makes sense for you, I think. Go ahead, Phil.
We try to embed that idea in the company as well. What the lab does is we host a lot of workshops, we host a lot of training for all of our employees that come and see us. We'll teach them about design thinking, we'll get them involved, we'll let them prototype things. We let them see what kind of things they can do, and they'll take that back to their groups, and we hope that that spreads. So we try to do as much training as we can. The other thing that we do is something like a Shark Tank, where any employee can come and we call it the first day to spark, where it sparks an idea where you can write down or put into play what you would like to see. And it could be anything. It could be virtual reality. It could be anything that they think of within their job, because they're the experts, and they provide something, and we actually run that through a series of tests, and it'll go in front of our executives at some point.
So it opens up a path for people that have ideas.
Absolutely.
I just want to say, I'm sitting here thinking that I would make a terrible CEO, so don't ever hire me, because my first thought is, why don't you just tell your employees to work an extra day a week and be innovative on that day? Are there other questions? Yeah, plant. I like it. So this is a legitimate question. So this legitimate question is thinking about Steve Jobs and how Steve Jobs managed to get innovation to happen. There's a potential cynical view, which is to say everybody wishes that they had a Steve Jobs, if I would say. But instead, what we're going to do is we're going to make an innovation center. And then the question you're asking, which is interesting, you asked the question, you answered it. The question was, well, are innovation centers a fad? So the answer is, well, clearly so far. And then the question is, but you said no, you think they're not. That's a good question, though. Are innovation centers a fad? I'll tell you from being inside of Georgia Tech and watching all this show up, many people inside think this is a cool fad, and let's do something as effective as we can while there are people that want to set up innovation centers. Maybe they won't last. What do you think? Are innovation centers here to stay? Is it a good idea or is it a fad? How do you view it? Let's go down the line this way, and okay. Rachel, you can jump in. I want to know whether accelerators are a fad. So go ahead, Phil.
I think that innovation center is a word. I think that any company can have an innovation center as long as you're innovative, as long as you're trying to solve problems. I don't think you have to say that you're an innovation. It's a philosophy of part of your company. It's a culture change. You don't have to say, put innovation center on your door, and anything that happens in there is going to be good. It may not be. You actually have to have a process. You have to have a process for innovating, and it has to be repeatable. And if you can do that, Steve Jobs didn't have innovation center. He called his Apple. And that was what it was. He said, think different. And in a way, that was the way that
to be fair, it's a very secretive company, and what's happening inside, you don't know if they have a room somewhere that says Innovation Center. You'd never get close to it.
So, but anyway, I think that I think anybody can have an innovation center. It's how you think through things. It's the process by allowing people to come up with their ideas. So I think having a name on it isn't necessarily a fad. I think that I think anybody can do it.
Rachel, what do you think about accelerators? So accelerators are clearly a fad. There's a lot of growth. At some point in the second batch of Flashpoint, we accelerated an accelerator, which I think is the definition of a bubble. I decided not to do that anymore. It worked very well. The accelerator is doing very well, but it's a funny notion. So what do you think? Are accelerators a fad, or are they here to stay?
I definitely think they're here to stay. I think we've definitely seen growth in the number of them and just how widespread they are as of late. Techstars included in that. We've added, I think, 20 new accelerators in the last 5 years, so we're really on that growth scale. In terms of are they a fad, I think that before the accelerators started coming on the scene, it was really hard as an entrepreneur to get plugged into resources, to mentorship, to a broader network outside of what you could have currently reached from your past venture. Now with accelerators like Techstars, you're seeing fantastic networks across the globe pop up that provide resources to these entrepreneurs in places that they might not have had them before. We have 2 rockstar mentors sitting out here in the audience, Kevin Lewis from First Data and Steve, who's hiding his head right now. But these types of people, like as an entrepreneur, how would I know to get in touch with these types of people? How would I know that they had valuable resources for me outside of stalking them on LinkedIn and hoping that they responded to my cold email? Until the accelerators came around, that network wasn't truly fully formed, and that's what I think our biggest benefit to these entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
that
so
we can
networks
witness.
and networks aren't a fad. So let me just get a sense of, are there more questions? Because I can summarize what I've heard so far. So and the summary that I'm hearing is innovation, core innovation can't be a fad. It's sort of a necessity. Whether you do it as an accelerator, whether you do it as an innovation center, or you put the name up on the wall or not, that sounds like that can't be a fad. People are moving towards it. I'll give you my own perspective on it because I have one, which is it probably isn't a place. The innovation probably isn't a place. It's probably more of a horizontal activity. We just don't know how to do it that well yet. We know it's possible, and eventually we'll figure that out. That's my perspective. But all the way back, go ahead. That's a good question. So the question is, this is working at a time when the economy is going up, the stock market is up. What happens when the economy goes down? And the answer is, it's never going to go down. No, I'm kidding. So what do you think? Is this fueled by something rising, or is it, does it have some longevity even in times of recession?
The answer to that question is going to be the notion of whether or not you have a fad, right? So if at the time when the economy goes down, you abandon it, then it was a fad, right? Because it never had a purpose in the greater sense of the
Well, here's a
concept.
question. Did you first cut marketing budget, or did you first cut innovation budget? You don't have to answer that question.
I can say from personal experience, the innovation budget.
There you go. So that's how we're going to know. So it's going to do rapid fire. So let's make sure other people get a chance to ask questions. Other questions? Yes. What's your name?
Marta,
Marta. Who are you with?
Accenture.
Welcome. So what's your question?
So I just had a question around what's the profile of the talent that you look for when you think about hiring people for innovation and to drive innovation?
Great question.
And in particular, how does diversity play into that?
Okay, so there are two great questions. One is Martha's looking for a job in innovation. She wants to know whether she fits. Actually, Martha's question is a great question, so let me do it in reverse order. So the question is, what role does innovation play? What role does diversity play in thinking about innovation and in hiring for innovation? And then in addition to that, what are you looking for? What kind of a person does well in an innovation center, or what kind of person do you look for to be able to be in the innovation center? So did I capture your question okay? You want to try again? No, I want to get your question right. Okay.
So I think I touched upon in the video is that when we were trying to solve this problem by ourselves in the corporate setup, we were always trying to find out same kind of solution that we have been doing it for many years. Bringing somebody from outside, particularly someone from as a student, or someone who is having that startup mindset, who is going to challenge, who is going to simply say, okay, why don't you use AWS? And it's a big no in the corporate environment. It's like, my data in the cloud, there's no way I can do it. And so we wouldn't even think about it, but somebody coming from outside. So that's one of the reasons why that's the kind of people we would like to attract.
So that's a different kind of diversity. It's like an inside-outside diversity already. So you're looking
Yes.
for people from outside. That's good. I just said we could just run down the groups. We're getting diversity of answers. Thank you.
In our sense, definitely looking for a strong cognitive diversity in the way people think and what they do. I will say that we really are focused on looking for two things. One is people who can form strong and lasting relationships back into the business, because if we innovate things that don't go back into the business, we've wasted our time. And then the second thing is what I call gap fillers. Skill sets and gaps that the organization has that we can provide that will fill gaps in order to bring things to market.
So Rachel, maybe you can ask a similar question. So when you have people come in and doing startups, what kind of people do you look for? Is there diversity, interest in the teams, and what kind of mindsets, or what kind of people, what kind of skill sets?
Yeah, definitely. I think the obvious answer there is the more diversity, the more perspectives to analyze the business from, which really helps when you're trying to both find product market fit and then scale the business. In terms of what Techstars does, we definitely look at technologies coming out of those underrepresented populations, because oftentimes they're solving really big needs, which is something that Phil said over and over again. And we really want to be the people that help promote those ideas and bring them to market and solve these problems for portions of the populations that normally have been overlooked.
That's interesting. So some of the people you bring in actually represent market opportunities that you might not have seen. So that's an interesting way to get diversity. I like that. Phil?
We have a very strategic way that we structure the lab. We have client innovation. We have researchers, the ethnographers, getting better. And we have...
These are the people you don't want to mention.
And we have...
You've said that twice.
UX designers. and myself, a technologist, and those people, that group, this overall structure, helps us find those things that we need to find.
Martha, are we missing anything? Is there something you're wishing that was there?
Oh, no, I was just curious around the capabilities that you look for in terms of the people, the type of people you bring in.
Great.
To feel that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Other questions? Are we out of time? We're out of time. So thank you very much to our panelists, and thank you to you all. Thank you to the Wireless Forum. It's a wrap. Thank you, guys.